Welcome to Flip the Switch with Dane Palarino. I am your host, founder of Dadbot Sculptors, and today I've got a special episode for you guys. It's all about why you're not losing fat or building muscle after 35, and most importantly, how you can fix that. This is one of the biggest struggles out there. I personally went through this myself, didn't realize it, but from 35 to 42, my body went through all kinds of changes. And one day I woke up and looked at my frame and said, wow, I look more like a pear than an aesthetic Greek god. And this was the source of my pain. This was a source of my insecurity. And I've come to realize that it's the same source of pain and insecurity for a lot of men who are out there. They're challenged, they're struggled, they're overwhelmed, and they don't know what to do. When you look for information, you get overwhelmed. When you look for strategy, there's so many to pick from. So it's really about picking a lane, going deep in that area, and finding out what works for you. What I studied was a series of men over the age of 30 that's been working for decades and decades, science-backed, that was proven, that was going to give me the biggest bang for my buck when I went on this journey, because I knew I maybe have one or two more goes at this, most likely one more go, and if I'm not able to get in the body that I want, I'm probably going to be unhealthy and insecure and not look like I'm somebody that's ever been inside the gym. So one of the key things that I want you guys to realize is most guys don't feel alone here, but they are spinning their wheels. They're doing 2 meals a day. They're doing random workouts. They've got no progress, and they really don't know what to do. They think fasting is something that's a long-term strategy. Some of them are pulling out carbs, doing keto, doing carnivore. Some are going vegan. This is all things that I've done. Some are doing group workouts. Some are doing body workouts. There's so many different options. We just keep grabbing because we are not seeing our body change. And when we don't see the result that we're after, what ends up happening is we switch gears, we refocus, and we grab at the next shiny red apple. And that's not the way to do it. What you've got to do is understand the complexities around what your body is going through after 35 and how it responds. When we were younger, we could eat whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, and our body was like a furnace. It just burned through it. But after 35 years old, our metabolism comes screeching halt. Okay? It slows down dramatically. Our eating habits change. Our routines change. Our activity levels change. So what this means is our body that was acting like a furnace in our teenage and 20s is now acting like a storage unit. Why? Because it doesn't know what foods are coming down the chute. It doesn't know how to process, absorb, and eliminate those foods. It doesn't know when it's getting fed again. So much like when a bear goes into hibernation mode, its job is to keep you alive. So if you're eating inconsistently, your body's saying, I don't know when the next meal's coming down. So I'm going to burn this slow so that I keep the body alive. And that's one of the biggest issues. I could say that probably 8 out of 10 men that come to me at the Dadbot Sculptors brand, they're only eating 2 meals a day. They're fasting for a good period of the day. They're training without foods, and they can't figure out why on their healthy diet they're not losing weight. And the importance is understanding, yes, you're doing pieces of the puzzle. You're training, you're eating healthy, maybe you're taking some supplementation, maybe you're doing some cardio, some days you're running, some days you're walking, some days you're swimming, right? But are you putting these pieces of the puzzle together in the right order to allow your body to really be optimized and start working for you as opposed to against you? And almost all of the guys are constantly having a body that's playing defense versus offense. So what I want to talk to you about, what I did in my journey to allow my body to start playing offense for me, to allow me daily to feel like I was advancing. And then my body started to respond, and I started seeing those results. And fellas, once you start seeing those results, something goes off in your head to where you start recognizing, wow, I'm bearing fruit from my labor. I'm starting to actually see that the energy I'm putting towards this is giving me the result that I want. And when that happens, this little light bulb goes off in our head. We start putting more energy, activity, and interest behind what's working. So what does work for men over 35? A lot of things can be out there, but I'm going to tell you what worked for me, okay? The importance for me was having a training style that was going to allow me to reduce the risk of injury, right? Or keep it as low as possible. So when I looked at jiu-jitsu and I looked at CrossFit, yes, they were engaging because they were group settings. There were other men there, but there was a high risk of getting hurt. And I knew that's not going to work. When I looked at calisthenics, I couldn't go deeper. I needed a style of training that I wasn't going to have an endpoint. I wasn't going to say, okay, when I bench 400, the goal's over. When I lose 30 pounds, goal achieved. Because what happens is when you do those things and you validate yourself on a goal or an end result, what ends up happening is 95% of the people end up losing all those gains back within 12 months. It's just a fact. It's what happens. So what I looked at was what style of training for men over 35 is going to allow me to build the body I want and most importantly, work against gravity because my body started losing muscle mass. And so what I started to do was recognize that hypertrophy style training, which was progressive overload, training the muscle smart. Now, if you want to get strong, you train heavy. If you want to build muscle, right, you train smart. And by training smart, you don't necessarily need to go heavy. You need to know how to control the weight. You need to know how to have proper tempo. You need to know how to stretch the muscle, engage it, and activate it. And hypertrophy style training didn't have an end date for me. I recognized that I could be building muscle into my 60s and 70s. There is no end date. So being 42 years old, I wanted something that was going to keep me engaged for a long time. Call it a new passion, call it a mission. But I was always going to look to keep evolving, keep progressing. And so hypertrophy style training is optimal for men over 35. Why? Because it's going to help you build muscle. And when you're building muscle, there are a lot of scientific benefits on why muscle is important as you age. You can look those up. That's not today's podcast. So I wanted to, one, build the proper muscle. Two, I knew if I was training this style, I needed to be able to feed the muscle properly to actually see the results. So when I looked at carnivore, when I looked at keto, when I looked at bulletproof diet, when I looked at no carbs and vegan, all of these people that I looked at didn't have the physique that I wanted. They were flat. Their muscles weren't full. They weren't round. They weren't sculpted. I wanted that type of physique. If I was going to put this time and energy into something, and 3 or 4 years later, I wanted to actually look the way that I wanted to look the way that I designed visually in my head. And so one of the guys that I looked at was Steve Cook, who was he was an influencer at the time, but he had said in a podcast, like, I've done the no carbs and I love the way that my body responds and looks with carbs. And then when I looked at the best sculptors in the world, which were bodybuilders, they all ate carbs. They enjoyed carbs. It was strategic around their training, and it was strategic around the style of carbs, but they enjoyed carbs because it gave them that muscle fullness. So I decided that macro-based eating was going to be the way that I was going to complement my training. And when I started to recognize and pull out the fasting, day-to-day fasting, and start adding in the carbs, and broke down each meal into a lean protein, a optimal carb, and an optimal fat, I started having smaller meals more frequently. And so for you, that might look like every 4 or 5 hours, right? Where you're eating a smaller meal. What ends up happening is you're getting much better digestion. You're getting much better absorption of those micronutrients, and you're getting much better elimination. When those three things are happening, your body is slowly now becoming predictable. It understands, I have another meal coming down the chute in 4 hours. So I've got to process this, I've got to absorb it, and I got to eliminate it. When that happens inside the body, you can assume your body is now going from that storage unit to that furnace. And when you go to that furnace, whether you're 30, 40, 50, 60, even 70 years old, that metabolism is firing off. And when that metabolism is firing off, it's going to start tapping into that body fat. And when we start reducing our body fat, our body composition starts to change. Why? Because we're optimal. We're optimal on the training style, and we're optimal on the eating style. And when you put those two together, it becomes a very complementary effort. So they work together. And now the third thing that I added into that was supplementation. You've got to understand that if you're taking vitamins and supplements and protein powders and all these things, but you're not doing pillar 1, training, and you're not doing pillar 2, eating properly, then all you're doing with supplementation is burning a hole in your pocket and changing your pee color, because none of those are getting absorbed. And if they're not getting absorbed, they're useless to you. But if you actually are training properly, pushing blood, actively, speeding up your metabolism so it's digesting, absorbing, pushing those nutrients into the bloodstream, right? Where they need to go, into the muscle group. Now you include some supplementation, right? Whether it's protein, creatine, magnesium, some microgreens, some essential amino acids, some glutamine, right? They're all different supplements depending on your stage. But when those start entering the body, you're not only going to look, feel, and perform better, but you're going to see results sooner because they're getting absorbed and they're going to complement the first two pillars. So that starts to really build momentum over time. Think 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Now we're rocking and rolling. Now we dial in a couple of other pillars. One is cardio, not endless cardio, not running 10 miles just to run 10 miles, but strategic cardio. One that's going to complement the training and the eating and the supplementation. So you want to either think HIIT if you're limited on time, high intensity interval training, or if you're a little bit older and you've got more time and your joints are sore, you want to think low impact, low intensity cardio. Why? Because this type of cardio is going to strengthen your heart health. It's going to improve dramatically your cardiovascular strength, so your VO2 max. And when you see your scale going down, you're going to know that it's body fat that's being burned off, not muscle tissue. Almost 99% of the guys that want to lose weight, when they go to lose weight, they overtrain and they undereat. They end up getting to a number on the scale, and then people tell them they look sick, they feel like they're skinny fat, and they're insecure, and they reverse out and they start eating more calories thinking now it's time to bulk. No, what you did was you burned off your muscle tissue and you never got to the fat store. How many triathlon athletes do you see that are lean but have a gut? They're burning muscle tissue all day long. Marathon runners, swimmers, people that are just endurance junkies. They're burning muscle, they're not burning fat. So cardio is not the solution to burning fat. Weightlifting with strategic nutrition, strategic cardio, and very strategic supplementation puts this well-oiled machine of these four pillars working together. What that's going to allow your body to do, it's going to recover better. Why? Because you're going to sleep better. Your cortisol levels are going to be lower. The timing of your meals and your cardio are going to complement your goals. So now your body's recovering properly, controlling blood pressure, controlling inflammation, controlling cortisol. So it's playing offense, not defense. Okay? When it's playing offense, it has the ability to actually change your body composition because it's working at optimal levels across all the four major pillars or pieces of the puzzle. When that happens, guys, you start seeing results that become somewhat addicting. I know for me, the first 90 days, I went from 30% to 18%. I was addicted to that. I could have stopped there. I really kind of got complacent there because most people said, man, you got the transformation. What are you chasing? But I felt like if I stayed there, I was eventually going to get bored with that standard of, well, yeah, I'm good. And then I was going to start sabotaging that success. Having a drink here, missing a workout here, right? Stopping protocols here. That's what happens. You don't end up in a dad bod through a conscious decision. It's unconscious decisions that you're making daily that start to compromise your physique and your standards. But if you constantly keep raising the bar and setting new standards and finding ways to progress and get better at the habits, and you don't validate yourself on the end result, which is I'll be happy when I get the 12% body fat, most guys, when they do that, they go right back to 20 or 30% body fat because they hit their goal. They have nothing else to chase. But when you realize I have a series of habits, a routine that I can follow on a daily basis through my training, my nutrition, my supplementation, my recovery, my cardio, this is a system that every single day allows me to go out and chase and execute, will create a state of happiness, a state of elevated vibration. Then you understand, regardless of whether it's a good day, a bad day, a rainy day, a stressful day, you know how to change that. You know how to put yourself in an elevated state to control the controllable. And that's what this is all about. That's what a winning system is about. If you want to change your body composition, you've got to be thinking about raising your standards and changing your habits. Those standards and habits will be a byproduct. Your body change, body composition, the way you look is a byproduct of your standards and habits. Show me a man's habits and standards, and I'll show you his physique. And that's just the bottom line of it. So if you're really understanding the concept, you've got to recognize that it's just micro adjustments in your routine, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and those micro adjustments will make a macro difference and the way that your body responds and the way your body looks. And it's probably one of the most complicated things out there for guys to get. But when we end up putting a plan together for our clients, one of the things they always say is, damn, I can't believe how simple it is. It's just not easy. And when you really just strip off and get to the core of the onion and get to the basics, which is what I had to do on my own journey, and you just recognize that now I just have to execute daily, do my part, control the controllable, and trust the process. And every single week, calibrate to see how compliant was I, and 2, how did my body respond based on that compliance, and 3, do I need to make any calibrations across training, nutrition, supplementation, cardio, recovery, right? Rest times, all these little things. This is when the body really starts to work for you offensively, as opposed to constantly being in a defensive state, which is what the body is in when you have that dad bod. So if you really are serious about getting the results that you're after, whether you've been training for 20 or 30 years like some of my clients and just don't look the part, or you're trying to just get healthier habits and make sure that when you do put your effort into those habits that you actually look the part, then reach out. You can message me on Instagram, flip the script, and if you do that, I will message you back my free ebook, and I will see if I can help you. I have helped hundreds of clients completely transform their life. Most of them have happened in 90 days. We've taken guys from 30% down to 10%, and it's all by finding out more about their busy lifestyle, what they can and cannot do, and then building a protocol and system that's sustainable for them so that they can get the results they want. There's nothing more discouraging than going to the gym 5 days a week and nobody recognizing your effort, and you having to get up every day, do it over again, look in the mirror and say, it's just not working. Maybe it's not for me. And I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be hopeless. You need to remain hopeful. You just haven't found the right system. And as one of my coaches once told me, you don't know what you don't know. Once you understand this and somebody's able to teach it to you, you have it for the rest of your life. So again, if you're interested, please reach out, flip the script on Instagram, and I will message you and see if I can help. Hopefully this message resonates with you. If you can, the show always could use your support. If you can, like the show, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a review. I would love that. That helps the message get to more men over 35 who are struggling in this area and really are trying to build a better version of themselves. We're using training and nutrition to do that. And my job is to make sure that we help one man at a time. When we remove that man as the challenge from his own life, the world opens up and it allows him to then influence and impact other men. So it's this ripple effect. Thanks for listening. Until next time, I will see you on the next episode.